Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to The Health Show with me, Alistair Greena. As you'll be aware, each week we're joined by a health expert in the specialist subject being discussed. Looking at how you can change your health and lifestyle for the better, we offer an alternative viewpoint from our health experts who attend the show. And we really hope that this will help guide you in the right direction towards better health. If you'd like any further information on our programme, then do get in touch at healthshow@islamchannel.tv. Today, we're looking at cancer diagnosis. Cancer is nearly always diagnosed by an expert who has looked at cell or tissue samples under a microscope. In some cases, tests done on the cell's proteins, DNA and RNA can help tell doctors if cancer is indeed present. These test results are really important when choosing the best treatment options. To discuss this topic, it's a pleasure to welcome Asmina Rose, who is a Macmillan Cancer Information and Support Lead based at North Middlesex Hospital in London. Asmina helps a wide range of people who've been impacted by cancer, including cancer patients, family, friends and carers. At a Macmillan Information and Support Centre like Asmina's, anyone affected by cancer can access free, confidential advice and support. Asmina, thanks very much indeed for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
It's going to be a great show. Lots of really valuable information for our viewers, I know, coming up. Let's remind ourselves how superb Macmillan is.
Cancer doesn't care who you are. It doesn't discriminate. Young, old, whatever. It doesn't give a damn about your dreams, your plans, your life. Cancer does not care about you. But we do. So if you ever need us, we support you physically, financially, and emotionally. Whatever cancer throws your way, we're right there with you.
So, Asmina, it was great to see really just a holistic view of who Macmillan is. But give me a bit of an indication about the background of Macmillan, where it all started, and a little bit more about what you do now.
So Macmillan Cancer Support is a charity that's been in existence for over 100 years now. So in that time, we've developed quite a lot of expertise in helping people affected by cancer to find their way through. As a charity, we don't receive any funding from government or from the National Health Service, and so we rely on donations and the generosity of good, kind people such as yourself and your viewers to help us do what we do.
And it is an amazing charity. As you say, you've been around a long, long time and have done some incredible work. Many of us of a certain generation will always associate Macmillan with the Macmillan nurse, but it's so much more than that, isn't it?
It is so much more than that. So, of course, our Macmillan nurses are still very important and very, very memorable as well. And I'm sure most people that have been through a cancer journey will still recall their Macmillan nurse very fondly, even after they've come out of the other side of that journey and carrying on living their life. But actually, Macmillan funds a great number of different types of healthcare professionals within the NHS, including people like dietitians, nutritionists, physiotherapists, speech and language therapists, and information and support professionals such as myself.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because it's evolved so much. I mean, one of the great things, we're going to be talking specifically about cancer diagnosis in today's show, but one of the great things is that we feel that it's a word that we can use nowadays. You know, it used to be the C word. How much have you seen that evolution of language, if you like, surrounding cancer?
There's been so much change, even just over the last 10 years that I've been working in the field of cancer. I've seen so much more willingness on the part of people to open up, not just about the fact that they've been diagnosed with cancer, which, as we know, is a completely life-changing diagnosis, but also about some of the other effects. So the physical issues that can result, some of the financial problems that can arise if you're not able to keep working, or if you have extra expenses because of your cancer treatment, perhaps because of all of those extra trips to hospital. So we've seen a great deal more openness, which is really encouraging.
And you were saying that the more and more people are developing cancer each year, and I guess a lot of that is the fact that we're living longer and therefore experiencing, you know, cancers and things that we might not have lived to have seen before.
Absolutely, we are living longer, and what we know is that now 1 in 2 of us are likely to face cancer at some point in our lifetime. That's what the statistics are telling us, whereas before it was 1 in 3. So cancer is becoming more common, partly, as you say, because we're living longer, partly because of some genetic and lifestyle factors. But there's no hiding away from cancer now. So the sooner that we're all able to face it and be prepared if it does ever come our way, the better.
I mean, 1 in 2, that's a staggering statistic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the truth of it is that, you know, certainly at my age, I'm encountering more and more people that I know who are being directly affected by that. And today's show is particularly about diagnosis because we're going to talk to Mohammed in the second half of the show, where we talk about discovering something's not quite right and going for that diagnosis, which is a massive problem in itself sometimes, that people aren't facing it. But the actual diagnosis itself, explain how that actually works. So let's say somebody has seen something's different about their body, maybe they found a lump, maybe something's different. They go to their GP who says, I'm going to refer you. What happens next?
So when the GP does say that they are going to refer you to a hospital, at that point they should actually let you know that the possibility of cancer is in the equation. We know that when GPs do refer people to hospital, most of those people turn out not to have cancer, and they end up, after their tests, being reassured that all is well. For a small proportion, cancer is diagnosed, and it's really important that the GPs in primary care are actually alerting people to the fact that cancer is a possibility, so that if worst fears are confirmed and they are given a cancer diagnosis, it shouldn't come as a complete shock, and those words shouldn't land on you like a bolt out of the blue.
And that's the big question, is, you know, at what point can people then come and talk to you to get that extra reassurance and the important knowledge that maybe, you know, a doctor or a specialist hasn't quite got that time to spend with you?
That's so important, and at Macmillan Cancer Support we really want to be there for people right from the very moment of diagnosis to help them find their best way through. If things are done as we like to do them in the NHS, when the doctor does give somebody the confirmation, the news that yes, this is cancer that we're dealing with, unfortunately, there should be a nurse present as well, a clinical cancer nurse specialist who may be a Macmillan nurse but who may not be, and they're somebody who will then be available if, for example, once the doctor said that word cancer, the person's mind just went completely blank and they don't actually remember anything that the doctor said after that moment, which is something that happens.
And again, it's great to see on our TV screens, we see more often, you know, scenarios where people are given the news, and as you say, you know, their life, you know, emotionally stops at that point.
Yes.
And they're not taking things in. So to take someone with you, friends, family, just anybody, as well as, you know, having a friendly nurse there, really does make a big difference.
It's the best thing you can do is to take somebody with you, whether it's a friend, a family member, a colleague or a neighbour, and that person will be there not only to give you the emotional support and maybe hold your hand when you're in the waiting room if you're feeling a bit nervous, but also to be a second pair of ears and to listen to what the doctor and the nurses are saying, and perhaps to make notes and to ask some questions which you may have thought of asking before you walked into the doctor's office when you were in the waiting room. So we do really recommend not going to these appointments alone, and hospitals will encourage you to bring someone along because we know that that can be really, really beneficial.
So you go to the doctor, you get a referral to a specialist. How long periods are we normally talking about between, the specialist seeing you and then getting a diagnosis?
So between the GP referring you to the hospital, they will refer you urgently, and we have within the cancer system a 2-week waiting time. So it shouldn't be very long before you get your first appointment, either to see the specialist or to have your first diagnostic test, whether that's a scan or a blood test or an investigation where the doctors take a sample of the tissue that they're worried about that they then send off to the lab. After that, the NHS is geared towards giving people who are affected by cancer either the bad news or the reassurance that it's not cancer as soon as possible. And all of us that work in hospitals work really hard to eliminate any possible delay, because we understand how much of an anxious time it is when you're waiting for test results and waiting to have some certainty about your future. And we know that that leads to so many sleepless nights, not just for the person who's being investigated, who's been going through those tests, but also for all the family members that are so worried about what's going to happen to their loved one.
And that's another part that people often forget. I mean, it's an extraordinary experience for somebody to be facing cancer and the treatment and everything goes along with that. But how do you help with family and friends and loved ones? Because for them, it's a huge emotional roller coaster as well.
Roller coaster is the word that many people use to describe the experience when they look back on it. And Macmillan Cancer Support, we are here not just for the people who are affected by cancer themselves, but we're very much here for friends, for families, for loved ones, because we recognise that cancer isn't a solo journey. It takes a team, it takes many people, it takes a community. And we offer support to loved ones, to carers. We offer lots of information, and many of the booklets that Macmillan publishes and the leaflets, which are very popular and downloaded with an astounding frequency from our website, are geared specifically towards partners, spouses, family members who are looking for tips on how they can best support their loved one as they go through this cancer journey.
One of the things that we now know is Macmillan is, pretty much the go-to charity when people are looking for support when they've got cancer or they know someone who has. What are some of the preconceptions that you will often have to deal with?
So Macmillan is the go-to charity, and one of the reasons for that is because actually we support people with all types of cancers, so not just the more common ones such as breast, prostate, lung and bowel cancer, but even the rarer types of cancer as well. And that is something that's special about our charity. Because of the place that I work, being based in a fairly ethnically diverse area, some of the myths that I tend to hear day to day tend to be culturally related or rooted within culture and tradition. So, for example, some people come into my Macmillan Cancer Support and Information Centre and they tell me that they weren't actually aware that they could get cancer because they thought it was for white people. One of the myths that I do still encounter is that cancer automatically is a death sentence. And of course, we know now, because of research and because of the improvements that have been made in treatments, that actually cancer is often a very survivable illness. And there are many people who are living 5, 10, 20 years after a cancer diagnosis. And not only are they still living, but they're actually living quite well.
And that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because a lot of people, are starting to come round to the fact that when we receive news of somebody having cancer, we also don't get filled with so much sort of sadness because, yes, we know they're going to have a journey on their hands, but actually, the survival rates these days are really quite tremendous. But I want to pick up on the ethnic diversity of the clinic that you go to, because, we know on this show that one of the challenges with many of the communities who watch the show is that ability to reach out to somebody outside their community, is that something you find?
It is something that I find, and so how we deal with that is by making sure that we can build up trust. Obviously, we know that cancer doesn't discriminate. Cancer doesn't care what your country of origin is, what your nationality of birth is, and it definitely doesn't care what colour your passport cover is. It affects everybody. And we understand that there are communities who traditionally have looked within the community for support and advice and guidance for all sorts of health issues, including cancer. But at Macmillan Cancer Support, we're working very hard to reach out to all sorts of communities who, in the past, we acknowledge, may not have thought of us as their #1 top place to go to for cancer advice and support.
But that's the great news, is the fact that you are the go-to support unit. And actually, on that subject, you talk a lot at Macmillan about personalised support. What do you mean by that?
So personalised care and support is something that is really, really important to us at Macmillan. And the reason for that is because we recognise that a person who has cancer is still a person. They're still them. And so it's so important to take time to understand about them, to understand what's important to them, and understand what their specific concerns are, because they are who they are. So within our programme of work that is all about personalising care and support, we've developed something which is called a holistic needs assessment. And the reason I love the holistic needs assessment is because it takes a checklist approach to talking about issues which cancer can bring up. So it systematically asks people whether they have any worries or anxieties related to physical issues, such as pain, related to practical issues, such as washing or dressing, because we know that particularly in the immediate aftermath of an operation to remove a cancer from the body, you can have difficulty doing things like perhaps bending over to do your shoes and socks, or reaching up to get some washing on the washing line.
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? There's a lot of practical help. You know, we saw on the VT there about, you know, financial advice, you know, practical help. Because I think one of the things that, and one of the reasons people come to you is because they know you've seen it all before.
Absolutely. We've seen it all before, not just in terms of the practical help, as you've mentioned, but also in terms of the emotional support. We know that cancer does have far-reaching psychological effects, and we know that there are many people who are so worried and who are so scared about their future that they're not able to sleep at night. And actually, one of the great things about Macmillan Cancer Support is our ability to connect people to other professionals who are able to help with those issues, such as psychologists, such as counsellors, people who can help with the emotional adjustment to the loss that one experiences when you're diagnosed with cancer.
Because that's the big issue, isn't it? It's the life change. You know, knowing somebody who's just coming through the journey at the moment, just finished their last course of radiation, it's that dramatic impact on your life for what will be quite a few months for most people. That's quite a lot to get used to in terms of change in daily routines and so on.
It's so much to get your head around, and for some people it's weeks, months, for some people it's years. There are some long-term consequences of cancer treatments which can be quite long-lasting, particularly things like tiredness and fatigue. And the fatigue that people experience after cancer treatment isn't just like tiredness when you've overdone it. It really is a particular brand of fatigue that only people who have been through cancer or who have watched a loved one go through treatment and come out of the other side can really understand.
And for people watching now who may be still thinking, you know what, I know somebody who, you know, I know suffering at the moment, there's a family member, and maybe if they haven't contacted you yet, what would you say to them?
Please reach out. Please reach out to that person and their loved ones, and please reach out to them even if you're not sure exactly what to say, because many of us struggle to find the right words because there are no right words when someone has cancer.
I was going to say, I was hoping you were going to help us there and actually give us a script we can use or something. But joking apart, that is so difficult for people. You know, I know when, you know, I've had relatives and people who've had illnesses where people don't know what to say, so they actually wind up avoiding them.
Yes, and you know, there was a time when we know that people would cross the street and avoid somebody who had cancer rather than speak to them because they were so anxious about saying the wrong thing. There is no wrong thing and there is no right thing. The thing to say is something that comes from the heart, something that comes from a genuine place of concern for this person and a genuine wish to understand what they're going through and give them a hand with whatever it is that they need a hand with at that particular point.
And it's at that point you really know who your friends and loved ones are, because it's amazing how people do rally. We've got lots more to talk about, and we're going to meet Mohammed in the second half, who'll tell us his story. But for the moment, Asmina, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, we must stress that should you suffer from any medical problems or health concerns, it's always highly recommended that you contact your doctor or GP, as the Health Show gives you an alternative viewpoint to the health concern being discussed. Join us after the short break when we'll be joined by a cancer patient talking about his experience and how Macmillan helped him through it. See you soon. Hello and welcome back to the Health Show, where we've been looking at cancer diagnosis and the support offered by Macmillan Cancer Support. To tell us his story, we're now joined by Mohammed Nazir Khan. Mohammed was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2014. A husband and father to 4 daughters, Mohammed's busy career as an HGV driver meant that he didn't immediately seek medical advice when he started to experience health issues. But after putting off a visit to the doctor for some time, and with his symptoms worsening, Mohammed heeded his wife's advice and went to see his GP, who quickly escalated investigations into the possibility that Mohammed might have had prostate cancer. Mohammed has been supported by Macmillan in a number of ways, and we're very pleased he's agreed to come onto the show and tell us more about his experience. So, Mohammed, thanks so much indeed for coming onto the show.
And thank you very much for having me.
And we've got lots to talk about, and it is indeed a great story and really, really interesting, particularly for our viewers. So thank you indeed for coming on. But with over 160 Macmillan information and support services across the UK, visitors will find a team of experts and trained volunteers on hand to answer their questions. They aim to give you a time away from the cancer clinic, where you can find a listening ear and information on everything from local support groups to help for the financial problems cancer may create. Before we talk more with Asmina, let's have a look at the fantastic work that Macmillan do.
Macmillan wants to help everyone with cancer.
Live life as fully as they can.
Whatever you're going through.
Whoever you are.
We help with money worries.
And rights at work.
Offer expert information.
Support in hospital.
And at home.
Day and night.
Good boy.
Offering physical, financial and emotional support.
They know I'm a person, not just a patient.
So sneaky.
I'm Dylan's mum.
I'm a dad.
A colleague.
A neighbour.
A friend.
Right now in the UK,
there are over 2.5 million people living with cancer.
And that number grows every year.
Gallwn helpu I bod yna I fwy o bobl sy'n byw gyda cancer.
By fundraising!
Volunteering!
And campaigning!
So whatever cancer throws your way,
They're right there with you.
So, Mohammed, it was great to see you in that video, and of course that was all about people's stories. So tell us your story.
I'm a HGV driver, or I was, and then at one time my calf had swollen up, and my wife told me to go to the doctors to find out, what's wrong. And being a man, macho and everything else, you think, oh, no, it's fine. it's going to be okay. You don't really want to go to the doctors and find out there is something wrong with you. But she was very supportive and forceful at the same time. You never take a no from a woman. So she sent me there and went to the doctors, and he said, we'll take some blood tests, and would you mind if we took some samples, test you for prostate as well? At that time, I hadn't a clue about prostate, only heard words about it. And then sent for a blood test, and the blood test came back, and then straight away he asked me to go and see a specialist at the hospital, and they called me in and said we need to do some more tests, which were very sad, to find out that that I had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So the oncologist and the Macmillan nurse who was there sat there and talked to me about it, and he was just straightforward, and he said, there's no easier way of telling you this. He's not going to sugarcoat it in any way. It's that you've got prostate cancer. I had no clue what it was, but the cancer word itself is very scary. And then as I started thinking about it, he was talking to me and the nurse was talking to me, and it was like in a film. It was like everything was going into a background. I could hear muffled sound, and my thoughts were elsewhere. And the funny thing was the first thing I thought was, great, I don't have to work anymore. I don't know how that came about. It was just, I think, maybe denial, getting a blue badge. I don't know what it was. It was not, I wasn't concentrating on what they were saying, but obviously they had to do more tests to reconfirm that. And then when it was, the more tests were done, it still did not sink in to find out that, prostate cancer, it's I don't know, not dangerous, but it's terminal. And then a few weeks later, I spoke to my wife and told her about it, and she said, there's nothing to worry about, it's okay, we'll get along. My daughter's very, very supportive. But I was still going to work, but I was getting more and more tedious, more and more tired, more and more agitated. Then it hit me that I really need to speak to somebody about this. And the first name that came up was obviously Macmillan.
And it was great that you actually did that. And I presume, Asmina, for you, in what you do, hearing from Mohammed, that's not an unusual story. That's probably how it plays out for a lot of people.
For a lot of people it does, and we're very grateful to all the wives who nag their husbands to go to the doctor, particularly Mohammed's wife, who we thank for him being with us here today.
Tell us about that first way that you contacted Macmillan. Did you give them a call? Did you go on the website? How did you start your journey with Macmillan?
Well, I was coming back from work. I was still working at the time, and I just pulled over before I got home. I rang them up and told them that I've been diagnosed with cancer. It had only been 2 weeks, and I'm lost. I can't find my way out. It was like, I don't know, you're drowning. You can swim, but you can't. You want to get out. And they were very, very supportive, very, very supportive, and told me to relax. There's nothing to worry about. It's as if, like before, it used to be like you're dying with cancer. Now it's you're living with cancer, with the medication, with the help, with the support.
And what kind of conversation did you feel you could have with Macmillan that maybe you weren't having with your family?
Families are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgmental, whereas Macmillan are not. You're talking to a neutral person who are experienced in talking to someone like myself who've been diagnosed. They know the right questions to ask you or the right answers to give you. It doesn't just make you feel well or the answers that I wanted to hear, supportive answers, and telling us what I can do, how they can support me, not only financially, but mentally as well.
And what for you, Asmina, is the most common form of contact? Are they like Mohammed, where they'll just pick up the phone? Is that normally the first way, or will they go online? Or what's the normal way that people will first get in contact with you?
So it really does depend. I mean, lots of people do exactly what Mohammed did and pick up the phone. And the reason that a lot of people do that, first of all, is because our free phone number is available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that's convenient.
Well, tell us that number now, and we will repeat that at the end of the show as well.
So our free phone number is 0808 808 0000. But for other people, they tend to pop into the information and support centre that's in their local hospital. So, for example, after you've finished in clinic speaking with the doctor and nurse, you can pop across to a centre like mine and speak to somebody face to face. For some people, the emotion of being told that they've got cancer gets to them, and it's too much to talk to somebody, to hear somebody's voice, or to see somebody face to face. And for those people, the website is often the first port of call. Our website, www.macmillan.org.uk, is there 24/7, and it's even accessible to people who might not be in the UK or to loved ones who might not be in the UK.
One of the conversations that people often dread is, you know, we talked about what would people say to you if they have this particular issue. But the interesting thing is that actually, I know from what we were saying before, actually we went on air, you were talking about actually conversations that you don't necessarily want to have with friends and family because you don't want too much sympathy, you don't want them feeling sorry for you. But actually what's great is you can have those conversations with Macmillan without the emotion necessarily coming into it, and certainly not from the other side.
Yes, it's like I said, being judgmental and being the man of the house. You know, you've got to take care of things, and if you're diagnosed with an illness, you feel that a lot more burden. You have to continue on supporting your wife and your kids and your family and everything else that goes with it. So talking to somebody neutral, it's helpful for them to guide you on the right path, to say to you, this is the path you have to take now, not the path that you want to take. So on that basis, like I said before, they advise you the best they can. And
talking about the path, tell us a little about the contact that you had with Macmillan throughout your journey. You know, how often were you seeing them? How did you see them? And what kind of conversations and regularity were they at?
Well, in the beginning, when I contacted Macmillan, obviously they were verbally very helpful and supportive, calming me down. And then along the lines, in a few weeks, a few months, they would contact me to find out how I was getting on. Was there anything that they could help me with? And I said, no, I'm fine, everything else. And they said, you know, we can financially help you as well. And having losing my job, because being a HGV driver, illness didn't allow me to drive the lorry. And then I put on a lot of weight. And they said, we can help you with clothing. And they gave me a grant to help me fit into bigger clothes. Heating bills, they helped me with my heating bills as well. So financially, they are not only there financially to help you, but supporting as well. And they would talk to my daughter, they would talk to my wife, just saying, is he okay? You know, maybe I'm hiding things from them, and my wife, and so on and so forth.
Again, I mean, that's incredibly thorough. Again, that's just a regular process, is it, Asmina?
Absolutely, it is. So the Macmillan grant that Mohammed was a beneficiary of is a means-tested grant, which means we do take into account the household income, but it is available to support people with exactly the things that Mohammed's mentioned. So things like extra heating bills, because we know that particularly in winter time, people who are going through cancer treatment can feel the cold a lot more, particularly if they've lost weight. There can be weight changes, so some people gain weight and need clothes in a much bigger size, exactly as Mohammed described, and some people lose weight. And when we talk about weight changes that are related to cancer, these are quite sudden, dramatic changes of more than 10% of weight. So it's not the same as when somebody might gradually put on some weight over a long period of months or years, or lose it. And the other thing that the Macmillan grant can really help with are extra travel costs to hospital, because a lot of treatment treatment does involve coming to the hospital very often. For example, for chemotherapy, there are regular appointments, not just for treatment, but for all the blood tests as well. And radiotherapy is often 5 days a week. And we know that for some people who are having difficulty getting public transport, perhaps because they've got a lot of tiredness or they're feeling nauseous or sick because of their treatments, or because they're having issues with bowel control or urinary control and they find themselves needing to rush to the toilet, getting to hospital on public transport, if public transport is available in your area, can be very difficult.
And actually, that's a really interesting point, because a lot of people, I mean, it's great the fact that your centre's there, and again, Mohammed, you're living in a fairly urban area, so to get access to support is not so difficult. But the fact that this is available for people in rural areas, I know we have many people watching from overseas, the fact that they can go online and the fact they can call is a fantastic service.
Yes, and the website is there all the time, 24/7, and it doesn't matter which country you're in, the information is there. And not only is it there, but it's actually available in 14 other languages other than English. So we have many of our most popular resources about treatments, about side effects, about understanding what cancer is, available in other languages, including Urdu, Bengali, Gujarati, Punjabi, many languages, and Macmillan is working very hard to make more and more languages available all the time.
It's absolutely brilliant, and it's so inspiring to hear the help that you're giving and to hear how that affected you. If you could sort of sum up, Mohammed, how the whole Macmillan experience was for you in terms of how it helped you get through what was a difficult time for anybody, how would you do that?
Well, people usually think about Macmillan or any other establishment is that it's just a call centre that you just pick up the phone and you just chat and that's the end of it. It's not. It's right from the beginning, and I don't want to mention the end, but right from the beginning, right through your life, with the diagnosis that you have, that they're there all the time, supporting you, talking to you, finding out if there's any other help that you need. There's no other way of explaining it. Brilliant,
well,
brilliant.
You're a great advocate for them. And,
well, they've been very good to me.
And well,
so.
it's great to hear that, and it's lovely when people, been through that experience, are so, happy to talk about it, and so openly. And coming to that, the journey, when you started your treatment, again, Macmillan were there for you, I know, during all of that time. And then towards the end, what about when you come towards the end of the treatment? Maybe you've just had your last session of radiotherapy or something, and it's that what now? Were they there for you again to help you through that part?
Well, my treatment started with the HRT injections, hormone replacement therapy injections. That I took for a year. And they were very supportive with that. That I've got to take for the rest of my life. There's no going two ifs about it. And then the chemotherapy had to come through. That I did for about 6 months. And that time, I think that was my lowest of the lowest feeling. Like Azima said, it's a tiredness that sets in. And it's not the tiredness that you've worked hard and you've had a hard day. It's not that kind of tiredness. And you have your good days and your bad days. And then you feel... And then I think you've got to have not only Macmillan by your side and your family supporting you as well to get through that couple of days that you go down, you're not feeling too well. And then after the chemotherapy, I'm on tablets now, and but I still have to go to hospital every month for the blood test and for the new chemotherapy tablets that I have.
But lovely to know that they're there for you if and as and when you need them.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I know you do, you're doing a huge amount of engagement with our different communities in the UK, and going to different things. We probably, many of us have heard about your coffee mornings, and you're going everywhere, into mosques and everywhere for that, aren't you?
Yes, so in 2018 we were so proud that the Baraka Khan Foundation, named eponymously after Baraka, who's no longer with us, sadly, helped with coffee mornings and encouraged people in mosques everywhere to join us for our world's biggest coffee morning. And this year it's taking place on Friday the 27th of September. It's always the last Friday of the month of September. So we would encourage you and all your viewers to please do join us for our coffee morning. You can make, you can bake, or you can buy and bring. And if a coffee morning doesn't sound like something that appeals to you, there are many other ways of getting involved with Macmillan, particularly through volunteering time.
And it is always a great time to get involved because, of course, Macmillan, as you said before, it is a charity. It has no public funding whatsoever. So you are really reliant on these events and public donations to raise money to help people like Mohammed.
We are completely reliant on the generosity of the public and their kind-heartedness in supporting our work. We couldn't do the work that we do without our donors, without the people that go and do sporting challenges like marathons and things to raise money for us. And we also couldn't do without our volunteers either. And that's another great way if people do have time and they'd like to get involved. If you look on our Macmillan website, there are so many different opportunities.
And you hear all the time about people getting involved and doing something to raise money. And thank you so much indeed for coming in and telling us more about it. And again, thank you so much indeed on behalf of us all for the fantastic work that you do, and Mohammed for you telling us your story. But life with cancer is still life, and Macmillan will support you to help you live with it. Right from the moment you're diagnosed through your treatment and beyond, they're a constant source of support, giving you the energy and inspiration to help you take back control of your life and feel more like yourself again. That's the Macmillan ethos. And if you or anyone you know is suffering from cancer, then please do get in touch with Macmillan for free here in the UK on 0808 808 0000 or visit their website macmillan.org.uk. Once again, we must stress that should you suffer from any medical problems or health concerns, it's always highly advisable that you contact your doctor or GP, as the Health Show gives you an alternative viewpoint to the health concern being discussed. If you'd like to find out more about this or any of the subjects we've discussed on the show or throughout the series, please do email us at healthshow@islamchannel.tv. But for now, it's goodbye from me. See you again next week. Assalamu alaikum.